Micron stock will collapse because there's going to be an oversupply of AI chips that's going to destroy the profitability of this company in 2027. Now, let me tell you something you already should know as an investor. However, likely that you're clicking on this video, you are a new retail investor and you are actively buying the top of a market that is going to cripple your portfolio. And I would even go as far to say there are quite a bit of retail investors that have just become investors here in the recent months around this last stage AI boom that is going to come to a very, very bad ending for most people that are invested in Micron and a couple other of these AI companies. Now, let me tell you something that you should know as an investor that a lot of people are missing out on. The profits have already been made. Okay, every vertical jump you see in Micron, every vertical you jump that you see in Micron, there is institutions on the back end, doing algorithmic trading, exiting those positions, not because they think Micron is inherently a bad company, because they are actively participating in risk management. That is how these stocks work. That's why we've seen an influx in a variety of different stocks that are exposed to large holdings, as upwards of nearly 9 to 10% of the holdings of these circulating supply of these shares are, held by these institutions as well, like BlackRock, Vanguard, to name a few. So what we see here as retail investors, typically 9 times out of 10, is we see people like to buy the top of the market. We've seen this with weed stocks back in 2018. We've seen this with Bitcoin multiple times. We've seen this with all the way back to the tulip bubble, the dot-com bubble, and every other bubble that we've seen. People ignore the signs that the bubble is inflating, soon to coming to an end, and we are going to be left with most people that are involved in this speculation with empty pockets, okay? Because every time they buy the top, there is somebody on the other side of that trade selling you that top. So just keep that in mind. These institutions, they are making absurd amount of profits based on this new group of investors, and these investors that think history does not repeat itself. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that you should know if you're an investor. In any system, regardless of the financial system, in any system where a graph directly goes vertical, something interrupts that system to make it come back down to a lower point. So if I have any graph, if I have Bitcoin, if I have the tulip bubble, if I have the dot-com bubble, if I have any bubble, which we are indeed in, there is something that is going to interfere in that system, whether it's profitability, whether it's interruptions in supply chain, any of these it could be COVID, it could be anything that is going to happen. Something will happen. That is the only thing that we can guarantee. It's not a matter of what it will be. It's the guarantee that something will happen that's going to interrupt that vertical jump, and it's going to go back down again. Okay, you always hear people, oh, I'm going to buy here, it's going to go up, sell there. Anything that is in a vertical straight line does come down, and it usually comes down as fast as it came up. Okay, in the case of Micron, you're looking at scary levels, guys. Okay, you're looking at extremely risky bets, and that is why something is going to interfere in this system. I think it's going to be the oversupply of AI chips going into 2027. That's what I think. I think this is a massive, massive bubble that is going to unwind because, for one, we've already seen the gains. Okay, when you start getting into the double-digit gains of like 1,000%, you really start running the risk of there not being that many left. Okay, there's not enough investors to come in. All the new investors, all the retail investors have already piled in. So there's not really any room for new investors to come in. There's only room for institutions to start unloading this stock on the down end. And you have even institutional short sellers piling into this stock, making an absolute fortune. They're going to make a lot more. We've seen them pile into SanDisk. We've seen them pile into Micron. They have been playing these inverse ETFs and these short selling positions very readily recently. That's why we've seen volatility while it's increased in price here recently. So my most important thing that I want to talk about is to hedge yourself from this oncoming dump. Okay, because the dump is coming. Okay, once this thing starts unraveling, it is going to cause the retail sector to start panicking. We're going to see a sharp decline. And what are we going to do? We're going to see the institutions come back in and pump it even more. So you're not gonna see like just a crash. Everybody's always like, oh, what do you mean it's gonna crash? No, it's gonna crash, but it's gonna crash. It's gonna crash like this, just like all these other things happen. We see this, like we're gonna see a short-term recovery rally, and then we're gonna see a dump. We're gonna see a short-term recovery rally of 2 or 3 days, then we're gonna see a dump. But one thing that we can guarantee is when you start zooming out and you start seeing this straight up line, you can cut that line in half, because that's where that stock will be going here in the next few months. I want you guys to drop into the comments. I want you to let me know, how long have you been investing? How many of these bubbles have you seen over the course of your lifetime? And I know we're going to get a lot of people in the comments saying, no, this is different this time. That's what I've heard every single time. I've heard it in Bitcoin. I've heard it in weed stocks. I've heard it in biotech. I've heard it in literally, I heard it at the top of the market while people were screaming GameStop. So this always happens. The only thing that's going to be different this time is absolutely nothing. Drop it in the comments and let me know.